Did you know that a Brazilian may have been one of the first men in the world to transmit the human voice through the air long before radio became popular? This story almost disappeared from the country's memory, but it could completely change the way we see the origins of modern telecommunications. Before continuing, make sure to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications, because here you discover real stories, curiosities, and little-known facts that helped transform the world. Now pay very close attention to this impressive story. At the end of the 19th century, when most people still communicated only through letters, telegraph messages, and written communication, a Brazilian was already trying to do something that seemed impossible at the time: transmit the human voice through the air without wires. This man was Roberto Landell de Moura, a Brazilian priest, scientist, and inventor who is now considered by many researchers to be one of the great pioneers of telecommunications in the world. Roberto Landell de Moura was born in 1861 and from a very young age showed interest in science, technology, and experimental studies. Even while following a religious life and becoming a priest, he never abandoned his scientific curiosity. On the contrary, he devoted much of his time to studying physical phenomena, electricity, waves, and methods of long-distance communication. At a time when the science of electromagnetic waves was still developing, Landell already believed it would be possible to transmit sounds and even the human voice through the air. This idea seemed extremely bold for that period. Many scientists were still focused on developing wireless telegraphy, which could only transmit coded signals. But Landell wanted to go further. He wanted to transmit the human voice itself. On July 16, 1999, he carried out a public experiment that would enter history. The demonstration took place in the city of São Paulo and connected two points separated by approximately 4 kilometers. On one side was Santana College, and on the other side was the region of Ponte das Bandeiras. Using equipment he had built himself, Landell managed to transmit his voice through the air using radio waves. At that historic moment, the first transmitted words were surprising and symbolic. "Play the national anthem." The audience present was astounded to hear a voice being transmitted at a distance without any wire connecting the 2 points. At the time, it seemed almost magical. This experiment took place more than 2 decades before the first official radio broadcast in Brazil, which occurred in 1922 during the celebrations of the centennial of Brazilian independence. In other words, when radio did not yet exist in the country, a Brazilian priest was already experimenting with transmitting voice through the air. Determined to further develop his discoveries, Landell decided to take his ideas to an environment where he believed he would receive more scientific and technological support. He traveled to the United States with the goal of registering patents and presenting his inventions. During his stay in the country, he managed to register patents related to voice transmission through radio waves. Some of his ideas also involved communication through beams of light, something that decades later would be associated with modern optical transmission technologies. These concepts showed just how far ahead of his time his ideas were. Despite these scientific achievements, Landell's journey was marked by great difficulties. Unlike other famous inventors of the time, he did not have access to major funding or personal wealth. The Brazilian government did not offer financial support for his research, and the church itself also did not invest in the development of his scientific experiments. Without resources, Landell had to take on debts to build equipment, register patents, and continue his research. Many times, he worked almost entirely alone, assembling complex devices with extremely limited resources. Another problem he faced was the lack of understanding from people around him. At a time when few people understood advanced science or technology, his experiments seemed strange or impossible. Some even believed his experiments were related to supernatural phenomena. This type of prejudice further isolated the inventor and made recognition of his work even more difficult. Meanwhile, in Europe, the Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi became world famous for developing wireless telegraphy, a technology that allowed coded signals to be transmitted through radio waves. Marconi received international recognition and even the Nobel Prize in Physics for his contributions. However, researchers who study the history of telecommunications point out that Landell de Moura achieved something even more advanced for the time, transmitting the human voice itself through the air. This achievement represented a step beyond wireless telegraphy because it opened the path for technologies that today are part of the daily lives of billions of people, such as radio, television, mobile telephony, and wireless communication in general. Even facing financial difficulties and lack of recognition, Landell never completely abandoned his scientific curiosity. Throughout his life, he continued studying several fields of knowledge, including physics, chemistry, and even psychology. He deeply believed that science and religion were not enemies. On the contrary, he argued that faith and scientific knowledge could coexist and even complement each other. For him, studying how nature works was also a way of better understanding creation and the universe. Unfortunately, despite his genius and innovative vision, Roberto Landell de Moura ended his life almost forgotten by history. He died in 1928 in the city of Porto Alegre without receiving the international recognition that many historians believe he deserved. For decades, his contribution remained little known outside academic circles. Only many years later did Brazilian researchers begin to recover documents, records, and reports about his pioneering experiments. Today, historians of science recognize that Landell de Moura was one of the first inventors in the world to carry out voice transmissions using radio waves. His work helped open the path for technologies that now connect billions of people every day. The story of this priest-scientist shows how a visionary Brazilian may have contributed to one of the greatest technological revolutions in human history. And it also reveals how great ideas often emerge long before the world is ready to recognize them. Now, I want to know your opinion. Had you ever heard about the story of Roberto Landell de Moura and the pioneering experiments he carried out in Brazil? Leave your opinion here in the comments, because this is a part of the history of science that deserves to be much better known. And if you enjoy discovering incredible stories, historical curiosities, and surprising facts that changed the world, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss the next videos.